My name is Adrian and I sell permission in envelopes. I work the marriage window at City Hall, counter glass, cue ropes, a stapler with a temper. On paper I verify IDs, swear in witnesses, stamp certificates that turn a room full of vowels into law. In practice, I stand between impulse and ceremony and try not to preface anything with an opinion. I carry a felt-tip pen because ballpoints lie on carbon copy, a flat of manila folders that smell like ambition, and a pocket mirror I use to see if the line has forgiven me. The mirror is a superstition. It tells the truth only about lighting. I live with Jonah. He's a carpenter who can look at a wall and hear its excuses. He comes home with sawdust in his beard and a patience I have been spending for years. We taped an index card to the fridge last winter after we ran out of style. Say it by noon. Noon is graceless, which suits us. We learned the hard way that midnight is a performance and wants applause. The Tuesday the printer behaved and I didn't, the line wound all the way to the Hall of Portraits. A woman in a white suit whispered into her phone that she wasn't running. A man in a hoodie rehearsed "I do" like a bass line, and a grandmother asked me if there was a way to notarize blessings. At 11:56 my phone hummed with the joint email Jonah and I use for deliveries and mercy. Thank you for your stay, the Beaumont. Time, 12:083:02. Points, 200 added. Noon sat down in my chest like a bad guest and put its elbows on the table. I didn't call him. Our second rule covers everything not yet a disaster, 2 loops around the block before nomming it. My block is the courtyard where the pigeons perform weddings the state can't be bothered with. I walked it twice. The fountain mumbled what water always does. You already know. A bridegroom cried quietly into his tie while his boyfriend patted his back and whispered, "We're just practicing." The city breathed through a hot grate. I went back to my window and stamped 3 applications to remind my hands what authority felt like. He arrived with a smile designed to look unpracticed. "Certificate copy," he said, sliding a form under the glass as if the plexi weren't there. His name, Cass, sat on the line that asked for it like a confession that enjoyed itself. He wore a suit that made bureaucracy look like a hobby. He said please, and of course, like he had been paid to pronounce the words correctly. He watched my hands the way men watch doors. "You want expedited?" I asked. "Would you rather I had patience?" he said, which was a trick question and he knew it. He claimed a stool in the waiting area and read a pamphlet about name changes, smiling at the parts that pretended the future is a form you can fill out. When his number blinked on the screen, he was already at my window like choreography. I copied, stamped, slid. He slid back a business card that called him a communications strategist, which is one of the acceptable euphemisms for telling stories with receipts. "Coffee after you clock out?" he asked with the confident courtesy of a man who collects examples. Jonah texted at 11, "Installing a window in a wall that hates windows. Dinner will be loud. Noon." I sent a heart and the gavel emoji we've both agreed is stupid. I meant it anyway. I met Cass at the Beaumont bar because some places are designed to forgive the wrong things. He sat where the light believed him. He asked me what it feels like to turn strangers into family, and I told him it's a trick. They turn themselves. We stamp the moment so they can't talk themselves out of it later. He touched the back of my hand with 2 fingers where a pulse becomes grammar and asked "here" with his face. I said "now" with mine, and the elevator performed its task like a witness on retainer. His room held itself together the way expensive rooms do, carpeting that masqueraded as discretion, a bed that believed in main clauses. He kissed the way men kiss when they've learned how to be gentle without learning how to be generous. He pressed me into the wall, asked again without verbs, and I answered with both hands. We left the lamp on because daylight had been added to the terms and conditions before either of us was brave enough to read them. He said my name once like a stamp. I said God like a formality. We were not beautiful, we were precise. After he lay on his stomach with his face turned to the window like a plant and said, "You'll forgive him," meaning Jonah, meaning the man who believes my version of myself on bad days. "I'll speak at noon," I said, and he smiled as if the word were a tip. Jonah was sanding a windowsill when I came home. He had a pencil behind his ear and the look of a man who has learned to measure before he cuts. He set the sander down, wiped his hands, and stood at the sink with me under the index card. At noon, I told him the nouns: hotel, elevator, mouth, hands, yes. I did not rename hands as mercy. I did not rename the room as regret. He nodded as if tight grain had just revealed itself. "Do you love him?" He asked and added, "Wait, do you love the part of you that doesn't have to fix anything?" "The second thing," I said. He took the Sharpie and wrote under our rule, "No rooms we can't name in this kitchen. If anything breaks, we break it together before midnight." He underlined together. He kissed my hairline like we'd agreed on a bid. Cass did not audition for decency twice. He came to City Hall with a journalist once and called me by my first name in front of my supervisor. He sent me a photo of the courtyard pigeons with the caption, "Unlicensed Joy." He seemed to believe he was studying us. The arrogance would have been ugly if his mouth hadn't been good at its job. He tipped a clerk 2 windows over with a box of cookies and a smile that counted. He hovered the way consultants understand hovering: adjacent, strategic, expensive. The city's gossip vertical posted a blurry elevator still from the Beaumont. My shoulder, a mouth that claimed it had earned the frame, a caption that tried to pun about vows. I didn't send it to Jonah. He found it, printed it, and taped it to the back of the bread box for exactly as long as it took the toast to pop. At noon, he took it down and put up the grocery list. This is how he chooses the right kind of memory to keep. A ring appeared, because stories like ours love props. The Beaumont called to say housekeeping had found a narrow gold band in a room linked to my email. The engraving inside read C+A, not mine. I told the clerk to hold it for the owner and hung up before I could practice dignity toward the ceiling. Cass showed up to claim it with the calm of a man who has practiced goodbyes as public relations. He slid it onto his finger and looked at me like a footnote. "You're precise," he said softly. I said, "I prefer accurate," which is something I write on sticky notes when I'm trying not to be mean. Then a recorder turned up under a bench near my window, the kind journalists use when they're tired of being accused of misquoting. Security peeled it off the wood with gloved fingers and placed it in a Ziploc, because this city treats gossip like hazardous waste. The tape held 3 hours of people saying the tender things they would not have said if they'd remembered the world believes in souvenirs. We posted a notice in 6 languages, and the comments performed outrage. The device belonged to no one until it did. A contractor for building services admitted he thought we were documenting best practices. The assistant city attorney wrote a memo that managed to be merciful and furious at once. I read it twice like a prayer in a dialect I pretend not to know. At noon, I told Jonah about the recorder and the ring and the photo, and how all of this was turning my job into theater. He made coffee and asked me if we were being brave or only interesting. I stared at the Sharpie. "I want to be boring with you," I said, which is the most adult sentence I have ever produced before lunch. He put his hand around my neck and held me just long enough to remember where yes lives. Cass tried a finale with the tone of a dress rehearsal. He came to my window with a couple whose hands never stopped touching. "We need an officiant," he said casually. "Our friend canceled." He meant me. "I am authorized to solemnize." I am also authorized to know when someone is rewriting my job into a joke. You'll be bored, he murmured as if the line were kindness. I am at work, I said, and stamped a form with small thunder. The couple laughed with their whole mouths and told me they had waited 12 years and wanted to get it right. We found them a room with a door that closes properly. I pronounced words the state believes in. Cass watched me like a critic who had missed a metaphor. Afterward, the couple hugged me and cried on my sleeve. He did not touch me. I took that as a gift. He texted once more, from a number that had learned how to be temporary. "Say my name," he wrote. I put my phone on the counter next to the Sharpie and the bread box and the index card and typed, "No." Then I deleted the number because sometimes adulthood is simply finding the correct trash can. If you want the erotics notarized, I can offer a wall and a yes, and the way daylight makes the worst decisions look like they belong in the minutes. His hand knew where to ask and where to insist. My mouth remembered how to ask back. If you want the intrigue bolded, you can have a ring with initials that think arithmetic is romance, a recorder taped under a bench near a government window, an elevator camera that believes in narrative, and a bar where citrus and apology commute. If you want an ending, remember I sell beginnings. We mostly just stamp what the brave have already said. Jonah and I left the lamp on that night. He asked here, with a hand around my throat, less as ownership and more as literacy. I said now, with my hands where he could name them later. We were careful because care is the only worship I believe in. In the morning we ate quiet toast and looked at the index card. He wrote another line, "If you burn something, do it where I can help find water." We didn't laminate it. Paper deserves breath. The recorder incident became a policy footnote. The city printed new signs with icons that look friendly and less like warnings. A man emailed to ask if we could retroactively bless a ceremony. I wrote back that we don't do blessings, but we do copies. The Beaumont switched to a different soap, and the citrus stopped being a character. Cass sent a photo of the pigeons with the caption, "Still unlicensed," and I didn't reply. Work stayed work. I still tell couples gently that they need a witness who is not their dog. I still read the name change form like a catechism. I still wear the blue tie on Fridays because the grandmothers like it. The fountain keeps mumbling its one good sentence. The mirror keeps lying about lighting. The stapler misbehaves when humility would help. I go home at noon most days and tell the truth in a kitchen with sawdust in the air and a man who looks at me like he trusts that the door will hang straight after it's been rehung. For a few hours at a time, we're boring on purpose. The rest of the time, when the city tries to hand me a role I didn't audition for, I hand it back and pick up the stamp. The couples keep coming. Some of them tremble. Some of them grin like power outages. Some of them hold their breath for the kiss, and some of them breathe through it like a wave. I stamp and swear and smile and watch them turn language into law. When I get home, we read the card. We add a line when we need it. We leave the lamp on or off depending on the kind of sermon our bodies want. At noon, we practice again. That's the ending I can sell. The rest belongs to everyone who stands at my window and pays in courage.